difference between what we need the gymnasts to be thinking about and the responsibility of us coaches on what we need to be thinking about. And
Yeah.
yes, we want the gymnasts in the present, in the moment, but for us, always as coaches, whether you're in summer training or whether you're in season training or championship season, whatever it is, we should always be thinking, all right, the next step is this, or the end goal is this. How do we get to that?
Hey everyone, welcome back to the NGA podcast. I am your host, Rebecca Grady, and I'm here with my incredible co-host,
Dr. Ian Kreider.
Rob Axelrod.
All right, so we are officially in the heat of championship season, and I know that most people have had their... I know people have had their state meets. We're going into regionals for most people, and I've had lots of communications with parents, some with coaches, on just how hectic this can be. And I thought this would be a really great time for us to talk about what advice we can give parents and coaches during this time to help lower the stress level, the nerves of their athletes, because a lot of parents have said that they're walking on eggshells kind of around their kids. They don't know exactly how to help them. They don't know what to say. And anything that they do right now has not been received well. Oh, I want to talk about how it's been going in your guys' gym. Have you guys been seeing the nerves and the stress buildup like a lot of other people say they've been experiencing?
So I see it a little bit, but I think what helps us is I have their routine plan posted up on the wall, like how many routines they do every day. Then they can look back at that and go, all right, I've done how many floor routines? I've done like 40 floor routines this season. Yeah, what's one more, right? And I think that
Yeah.
also takes stress off training right before regionals or nationals or anything like that, is because you go, yeah. I mean, obviously you did well enough to get to this point, and all that training got you to this point. So you're just trying to fix a toe point now. You're just trying to straighten out a knee. You're just trying to hit that last 10 degrees in the handstand. It's just the little things. Hopefully, you're
Yeah,
not
like
trying
that
to add a new
cleanup.
skill or do anything too crazy. So look back at your success and have, fond memories of that and go, there's a reason why I got to this point. I would say for the vast majority of people that qualified for regionals or Easterns or nationals, it wasn't because they got lucky at the meet. It's because they worked really, really hard and they did really well and they did what they trained to do and it worked.
Yeah, we're in the same boat. We're not really having too much. We have one athlete that's had an injury, so she's a little bit stressed out. But as far as the rest of them go, they're actually pretty pumped up to go. One girl was injured last year, so this is actually her first year. And another girl, it's a first year, and one of the others went to Easterns last year. Didn't do as well as she could have done because her nerves were in the way. So this year it's way better. She's focusing more on, like you said, Ian, hitting your handstands and cleaning up the routines. And we've backed off some of our numbers a little bit, but we've increased the intensity. We're trying really hard to make every effort. We're bringing in the choreographer that did their floor routine. We brought her in 2 weeks in a row just to work specifically on dance and sharpening up their arms, and bring them over to beam and let the choreography work. Not that we don't work on that, but it's just a little bit somebody else's different voice, and it's kind of calming them a little bit. And the numbers are still up a little bit, on bars, but floor routines have become more floor routines on the floor, less tumbling in the pit. Because usually what I'll do is we'll do like a hard day, you'll do a floor routine on the floor. You have to make it. If you fall on a pass, you got to start over. I let them finish that routine. So most of the time, that's like an incentive to hit your floor routine as well. And I do the same with beam. Like, it's like, okay, make 2 of each skill, then do your routine. If you hit it, you have one more. If you miss it, you have 2 more. So it's not a lot of numbers, but it's more intensity that they're trying harder to make those routines. And that's been working out really well. And my athletes also know about frequency, duration, and intensity. And they know we're not going to really increase any duration. We're not making longer practices. We may make an increase of frequency, and yet they also know that you never do those at the same time. But our increase of frequency is just come in for a couple hours on a Wednesday and just do some cleanup, which we've kind of been doing all year anyway. So it's not really an increase in frequency, but the intensity has definitely increased. And we're using it in a better way, I think, than ever, because they were successful this year, like you said, Ian. Look back at your successes. Look back at
Mm-hmm.
what you did at states. We have a vault champion. We have a second place all around champion. a beam champion. So they did really well there. But you just have to think about when you get there, you don't have to try to win. You just have to try to do your gymnastics. Just show up, do your gymnastics as well as you can and have been doing, and it will be good enough to win. You don't have to try to win. So we take the whole win aspect out of it. And how many times we show up and do vault and win, like all season, and all three girls were doing layouts, so at level 9. So that was great. It's like a fantastic thing for them, a boost in their morale. As we get closer, I find that when they miss a routine, they're throwing out the baby with the bathwater, so to speak. And like that's become the issue for me is like, how do I get them to not slump into the next event? Because some of them will carry it from event to event. We're on the big thing about turn the page, next event,
Right.
move on.
Yeah.
Let it go. If we want to go back, you can go back. But we're done.
Yep.
Move on.
Yeah, I think that's when, I try and get them to focus on their teammates then at that point. I'm like, hey, your teammates are still going. They still need you to cheer them on. I need you to get your mind off of yourself and
Yeah.
what you just did and get your mind on your teammates. If we don't have teammates then there, then I make sure we
Yeah.
have group mates, right? And so the people that we're rotating with, we're still cheering for them because we don't want anyone to do poorly.
Yeah.
And so we're cheering for our group mates as well and we're learning their names and high-fiving them when they get off an event and all sort
Yeah,
of
well,
things.
yeah, that's true too. We have 8 or 9 girls in our day group, and 4 of them are 9s. 3 are training, 1 is injured, just got out of her cast. But the other kids could be a hindrance actually as we're getting ready to go to regionals. So
Yeah.
yesterday, 2 of them were out sick. One is she comes in only for half the practice, and the other I put in a different group because on Mondays and Fridays we have a second day group that started. So I kind of separated them, just let them stay together with the 4 level 9s, and that's been good too. Like you say, try to take some of the pressure off yourself by helping others. But I also try to teach them, like, don't worry about everybody else. Just do you right now. You don't have to worry
Mhm.
about a team thing. It's not a team thing at regionals. I mean, it is, but it isn't. Who cares? Just we want to get to Easterns. And then that came up yesterday. It was like, I'm so worried about getting Easterns. I'm like, what are you worried about? Like, there's nothing to worry about. Last year, you were a fall on beam and you were in that for the one girl. 2's never been there before, so they just need to go do their thing. And 1, she was in first place by 6/10 on the last event and didn't have a bar routine. So we knew we were in trouble and she wound up going anyway. This year, she's got a bar routine. So, I mean, come on. It's like redemption. Go back and you should want to kick everybody's butt, but you don't have to say it out loud. Just go.
Yep. Just do what you've been training to do all year long.
Just do gymnastics.
Yeah. And besides, regionals is what's coming up. We shouldn't be thinking about Easterns yet.
No, I mean, you
Right.
gotta get there
That's a
first,
step past. Yeah,
But I mean,
exactly.
to be honest, though, I'm already on Easterns. Like, we're going, like, in my brain.
You're
Yeah.
like, we're set.
We're
Right.
going. I'm
But
booking my
that's the difference
booking my
between what
flight and
we
I'm going.
That's the difference between what we need the gymnasts to be thinking about and the responsibility of us coaches on what
Right.
we need to be thinking about, right? And
Yeah.
yes, we want the gymnasts
Yeah.
in the present, in the moment.
In the
But
moment.
for us, always as coaches, whether you're in summer training or whether you're in season training or championship season, whatever it is, we should always be thinking, all right, the next step is this or the end goal is this. How do we get to
Mhm.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah, like
And
at
like what
States
you're doing impacts the
correct.
future.
Like at
Yes.
States, one of my athletes like did like horribly in level 9, but it didn't matter. She's pre-qualified to regionals. I'm like, who cares? Well, you just need to go to regionals. That's the end game. States is great. I know you want to do well. And she like clipped her foot on bars on her pack and she was like in
Gosh.
pain. And I was
Ugh.
like, I was trying to scratch her on floor. And so she tumbled this way. And so I walked down around the other day and she went this way. And then I went this way. And I was like chasing her on the floor and she's like shaking her head no. And I'm like, somebody did this to me once before. Guess who? Sarah, who you all know has been on here before. She did that once too because she clipped the toe and I did scratch her on floor. And then she went down and she won regionals that year. But this
Yeah.
one was like, no way, I'm doing floor. I'm like, okay.
She's like, you're not catching me. Like, I'm doing this.
So I
That's
finally I just
hilarious.
put my hands up. Like, can you stop, please? I'm just chasing you around the floor here. You go that way, I go this way. You go around you. You go the other way. I'm like, let's stop it.
She's like, I know. That's my plan.
Yeah,
I like the dedication,
hiding
though.
behind the pole, like, oh, you can't see me. So
There's some good things.
there's some good things
What?
about that though, and so to bring that full circle is the parents though are I don't know, the parents are bringing a little more stress than I would like them to because like they're showing up to practice, they want to watch and see what they're doing, like and they don't normally
And they
do
haven't
that.
watched practice all year long.
No, not at all. And I feel like walking out to the lobby and go, hey, I don't mind that you're here, but you haven't been here all year. You're just putting extra stress on these kids. Please don't do that.
Right.
I think they're just not really aware of how much stress they're putting on their gymnasts when it comes to states and regionals and nationals. Like, when it comes to just normal competitions, they're very good at just encouraging them. But for some reason,
Yeah, postseason.
yeah, it's like postseason, they're just like, oh, these are big competitions. And then they talk like they're big competitions with their athletes. So, and instead of them just being like, oh, this is another competition that I'm supposed to look and work on my skills the best that I can, it's getting blown out of proportion. And if they have to miss it, they're melting down, which is, you know, some of the things is trying to figure out exactly how do we encourage parents to not freak out? Because like I know they're excited.
Yeah.
I know they're nervous,
Yeah,
but
well,
all of that's
they're
coming
nervous,
off and
but it's
rubbing
coming
off.
off on their kid, and, like, the other day,
Yeah.
somebody walked in, and one of the kids like, "Oh my gosh, what is my mom doing here?" See, I told you the parents are stressing them out.
Yeah. And I think just like the gymnasts, we want like, hey, it's just do gymnastics. It's just one more meet. It's just another routine, whatever it is. Like we need the same attitude from the parents as well. You're like, whatever you've been, just be normal. Whatever you've been doing has been working all year. Just
Mhm.
do that, right? If we want them to practice their nutrition, their pre-meet meal, just like we want them to practice that, and you've been practicing how to prepare for meets all year long,
Yeah,
why are we changing it now? Just whatever your normal thing. If you guys normally every Tuesday you go out for Chick-fil-A or ice cream or whatever, why are you changing it now? Right?
yeah,
Just
yeah.
Yeah.
do your normal thing.
See,
Yeah.
and so for me, like, the schedule came out and, we've been on Fridays almost, every meet this season, and one of the meets that we went to, the girls were on a Saturday, and it was in the afternoon, and the mom and dad and the kid drove up 2.5 hours to get there and then competed, so that was different, usually it's go the night
Mhm.
before. So this past week, I gave them off on Friday. It wasn't just to go to Kentucky like we were talking about, but because I didn't have that in the cards to make those arrangements. I would, obviously rather not driven all those hours and back and forth to get
Yeah.
back here
Long
for
drive.
practice. I would have flown, but I can't make those arrangements or plans because we didn't have the schedule. And now the schedule came out, so then I kind of winged it, just zipped out to Kentucky. But anyway, I gave them off on Friday because that's going to be their travel day, and then brought them in on Saturday at the time they're going to compete. So one kid
Yeah.
came in at this time, and three kids came in at this time. Now some of them are competing on Sunday, but it was Easter, so I didn't want to bring them in on Easter, but I still mimic the time. So that's something that you can look into also to help you take some of the pressure off. Like, okay, if they're going to be traveling on this day, give them that day off this week, which we did. So now that was last week. Now this week we're going to be traveling on Friday. So we're going to train Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, take, Thursday, Thursday's a touch and get out, you know, warm up, compete on each event, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, and out the door they go, travel on Friday, compete on Saturday. So it should feel like last weekend, and they'll be a little bit more used to,
Mhm.
so we don't have practice on Saturdays. So that was good for them to do.
Yeah, and it's like anticipating what's gonna happen as your job as a coach to do, and
Absolutely.
and I'm not sure I know some coaches really struggle with that, and I think, we've talked about having that plan, but scheduling in those things that you know. So we know that championship season is gonna bring a lot of stress and extra pressure,
Right.
like, that just happens. So, like Ian said, looking back at the wins, those are things you can schedule in before you're starting to get to those championship meets. Before those meets come up, you can prep. I do a state prep with my kids, like championship prep. Like, let's look at the season, look at all your wins. Let's look at how many routines you get. Like Ian said, that it's all recorded up there so they can see that stuff. So you're already starting to implant in their brain that these are important things to do to build their confidence going into these meets.
Yeah. I mean, and partly on my part, changing practices and that kind of stuff kind of added a little stress to them because they were like, well, I can't make it on Saturday. So we know what I'm doing. And it's not about, like, nothing's mandatory, right? So, like, I'm just giving you the opportunity to be the best you can be, and they have to look at it that way, and there's sacrifices, yes, I'm making the sacrifices as well, and, like, I would've come in on Sunday if somebody wanted to come in on Sunday and it worked out for them, and I'll make that sacrifice, and it's not to say, like, I'm making the sacrifice, you have to make the sacrifice, that I didn't want it to come off that way, so it didn't. I'm like, "Look," I said, we all have to make sacrifices because we want to. And if you don't want to, that's fine. But you have to look at you don't want to have any regrets. You don't want to look back and say, well, you know what? Maybe I should have taken that extra practice for 2 hours, or maybe I should have trained on Saturday instead of Friday. And so I'd be more used to training. You don't want to be able to say, look back at the end. If you don't get into Easterns, you can say, look, I did every single thing that I possibly could do and I didn't get in. Or I did every single thing I possibly could do. That's why I got in.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. So it comes down to just being normal. Just don't be weird,
Yeah.
right? Parents, don't be weird. Coaches, be
Coaches, don't be
normal.
weird. And kids,
Don't be weird.
kids out there, if you're listening, don't be weird.
That's right. That's right.
Don't be.
Just
Oh my
don't be
gosh.
weird.
Nobody.
It's not that hard.
Gosh. But when you were talking about prepping for being just like knowing, telling your gymnast to know that when we get into championship season, that our schedule is going to fluctuate a little bit because we're trying to prepare for these. It's kind of like me. I have that half marathon coming up in a few weeks, and
Yeah,
I started running in the morning.
the one that you don't practice for.
Hey, I have been too. I've actually been very dedicated to running, Rob. Thank you very much.
Sure. You didn't say that last week, and I mean, thing's only a week away.
Hey, I haven't talked to you in weeks.
That's
We
not
have
true.
not recorded for weeks.
We didn't record, but we did chat.
Anyways, I started running in the mornings this week because the race is going to be early in the morning. I'm going to have to get up to get there. And I do not enjoy running in the morning. It's going to destroy my life. I liked running at night. So anyways, kind of same thing for championship season. Sometimes we have to be a little bit flexible
Yes.
in our schedule. And so we can prepare and feel the most confident that we can on that day.
You know, it's funny. The coaches, have a little bit more stress sometimes than the athlete. Because, like, if you have more than one athlete at this level, it's not just one meet. It could be 3 meets. So it's 3 meets for the coach. It's only 1 meet per kid, and the coach is over there pulling it. Well, sorry, but, pull their hair out.
Which does not apply to either of you right now.
No.
It
Well,
doesn't.
I mean,
doesn't.
Ian's got a little.
I guess
there.
you guys could do your beard.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
yeah.
that hurts way more. No way.
Than pulling your hair.
Oh man, you pull a mustache here, that'll bring tears to a grown man's eyes.
Yeah, especially when it's up here.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about it, do you? You get yours waxed.
No, I don't have to do that yet.
No, nice.
It hasn't happened. But I was thinking of one thing for parents when we were talking about this that I notice a lot that can add to pressure and stress is when your kids are getting in the car, not asking about, hey, are you getting those corrections on these skills? Are you cleaning these things up? Remember, I saw in your competition that your legs and toes aren't straight during this. Have you been working on that?
Yeah.
The more you do those kind of corrections, and even though you think you're being helpful, and we love that you want to be helpful, let's try to leave that stuff to the coaches because that is just adding more stress when they're getting home. They're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that at practice. So now they're thinking about it.
Right. And my mom's watching it and she doesn't even know what she's talking about, or my dad said this and like, what does he know? And so if you look back in our former episodes, you could also see that, when the kids get in the car and, you're like, hey, how did I practice go? Good. How was school? Good. You have any work today? Yeah. Did you do your pack? Yeah. But, when the kid gets in the car, you're like, oh, the bars were so good. Like, so when the kid engages or talks, then engage. Otherwise, just let it go. Because they're just being kids. They don't want to talk about it. It's like gym is gym and I'm not in gym, no gym. Like everybody needs their downtime. Except for us coaches, go home and spinning in our heads about gymnastics.
I know. Or adding on extra routines, coaches, because I've ran into a few of my athletes who their coaches have been upping their routine numbers for these weeks going into championship season or during it. And it's stressing the kids out. You're moving from normally doing like 3 or 4 routines, and now it's like 7 or 8.
Yeah, and it should actually be going the other way, and as our periodization is happening, if you planned it correctly, like I said, I'm backing off some of my numbers now, and that's really what periodization is all about, now it's more about performance versus numbers.
Yeah.
Yes.
But,
absolutely.
I really do like,
I
was just gonna say, I really do like when you have the incentive to hit, it's not a punishment to have to do an extra routine. And if, by the way, you do have to do that extra routine, I've taught my athletes that, okay, the incentive was if I hit one, I only have one more. If I miss one, I have 2 more. So the incentive is a positive. But if I miss and I have 2 more, well, I'm going to make 2 in a row. Like, so you make it a challenge for yourself instead of a punishment to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because it's not.
Yeah. And part of that periodization is peaking, right? So we talk about peaking at the right time.
Yeah, like just
And
we talked
the
about that earlier,
only
right? About states, who
yeah,
cares? I mean, you're pre-qualified, and it doesn't mean throw it out. Like the state meets have become a little lackluster because like it doesn't matter whether you're the state champion anymore because you want to go to regionals and get to Easterns. It used to be a big thing to be the level 9 or the level 10 state champion. Now it's like, yeah, whatever.
yeah, whatever. Yep. But we want to peak at the right time. So hopefully, at the beginning of season, you chose when you wanted your kids to peak. Sometimes that means you do need to peak at states because you're not sure if they're going to make it to regionals. So
Yeah,
they need to have their best meet at state.
yeah,
Sometimes you go, hey, no, like it's not going to be a problem. We know we can make regionals. We need to peak at regionals. That way
right.
we can make nationals, right? But whatever that is, whatever plan you came up with, then stick with that plan, right? And once the
Yes.
plan is over, so like let's say, hey, the peak happens at regionals, the plan is over. So now what do you do until nationals? Well, there you just coast, right? You just maintain workload from
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
You don't have to ramp up again or do
once you
anything
get into
crazy.
nationals, you're just maintaining. I mean, and then you're just go and then it's just pull out all the stops and go. Like, for example, we have a couple of athletes, right? And I'm sure all the rest of the clubs are like this too, that maybe they have one skill that kinda, like, still bothers them a little. They make it, but, like, the percentages are off. So, I yanked it for regionals. And, the athlete's not, unintelligent. I hate to, like, to use the word stupid, but they know that they need that skill and there's a 10th deduction for not having it. Well, there's also a 5/10 deduction when you fall on it
For
80%
having
of the
it.
time.
Yeah,
And if
Yeah.
you're
exactly.
falling on it 80% of the times and they were upping the stress at regionals, so now it's become 85 or 90% of the chance that you're going to miss it. So now it's not the 10th that you're losing on it, it's the 5 that you lost on the fall and any deductions that you had. Maybe you landed on the beam and you had bent legs, and so you lost 7 or 8 tenths on this one skill. So yank it. So I yanked it, I videoed it, I sent it off to a judge. Judge came back and said, "Well, you're only gonna have a 99 start value, but, you know, minus 1/10 for not doing the extra acro." Okay, great. No
Yeah.
problem. I'll take a 9.3, 9.4,
Right.
a
Right.
9.2,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. And
you go in a
and being
vault, you're
able to
getting a
prep those
9.8,
guys with
so
those
you're
things.
good to go. Yeah, and so, I did that for one of the athletes at States, and she went 9.3 on beam, and she was your beam champion. And the other one, she fell on that same scale at States and, went like 8.4, and she was kind of mad, and I don't blame her. So it was kind of a disagreement about pulling it for this weekend, but she's made every beam routine this week and the last half of the week when I decided to pull it. So she's kind of
Yeah.
feeling pretty confident. But,
Yeah.
we still train that skill because it's going back in for nationals. Because if you're going to nationals, then
Yeah.
pull out all
Every
pull
10th
out all the
matters at
stop.
that
Every
point.
10th matters. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll make it a
We
10
got
on start value, and it'll get back to 10th for not having the extra salto and yada, yada, yada.
mhm. I mean, and those things are really good to prep them with, like to talk about, like, hey,
Yep,
these are some of those changes that we can make during
yep.
championships because that's necessary. And then giving them the reasoning, which is so important, like how you broke it down. Like that makes sense. Um, but this is one thing I was thinking for coaches that you can do. It's probably not going to work now since we're already in the heat of everything. But if you start this during the summer or during season starts, when your kids have a bad day on an event, if you stop them and have them find something that went well on that event
Yeah,
instead of them hyper focusing on the bad or that mistake or that fall or whatever it is, because the more you practice that in season or at practice, the easier it's going to be for them to go to meets and be able to do that and be like, okay, I fell on this on bars, but this, and this still went well. So now I can turn that page, like Rob was saying, and move to the next event. But remember, these are things that you kind of want to practice throughout season when they're practicing or other meets too. But you can still try it. Sometimes last minute, it might work with your athletes when they're at one of these bigger meets too.
yeah, and then, if you have to move on, right, sometimes schedule makes you move on to the next event or you won't get everything in, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
being that you might have this extra time because 'cause you're not doing so many numbers and there's not a lot of, tons of warm up to get to it, which just kind of warm up, we got to go, right? It's like, let's not take 25 minutes to warm up and get a bar routine done because I find that if I give them, okay, you have 30 minutes on beam, you've done a complex or you've done this or you've done that, or, get rid of your complex right now, everybody just go do your routines, do your warm up like you would at a meet. You're not doing complex at a meet. Stop doing it for a week or two, right? You don't need it. So that's just my personal opinion. Anyway, okay, you have 30 minutes on beam, see how many beam routines you can make. And a kid makes 6 beam routines in 30 minutes. Then the next day you have 45-minute beam routine or 45-minute workout on beam. and the assignment is make 2. They'll take the whole 45 minutes to make the 2 routines. But
They will.
yesterday you made 6 in 30
Yeah.
minutes
Yeah, they'll
because
warm up for 40 minutes and go, "Oh, shoot, I gotta do
I
2
gotta
beam
do a
routines."
routine. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so the kids will play to that time frame. So it's in your best interest to get them to get up, go, and get them done. And then, okay, beam didn't go really well. We rotated. If you want to, we have extra time. You can go back to beam. You have to go back to beam. I mean, that's, old school. Be like, you're going back to beam and you're staying here till you make your assignment. You don't really coach that way anymore. But if they want to go back, then support them. Hey, yeah, I'll go back with you. Or, their practice ends at 5:30 and maybe they teach in the gym. They have to work at 6, or maybe they have their own car and you have extra time as a coach. And the other group isn't coming in until 6 or whatever. I have a half an hour window. Right? I'm happy to go with you to bars. I'm happy to go back to being with you. Like I said, we as coaches also have to make those sacrifices for our athletes, but the athletes have to want to do that. If they don't want to, it's pointless.
Yeah. Yeah, and use your judgment too, right? Know when enough is enough. And,
Yes.
sometimes kids need you know what? I think today's just kind of a rough day on that.
Yep.
Let's try that again
Yep.
tomorrow.
That was exactly what happened yesterday on bars. One athlete was just struggling and struggling and struggling, and she kept trying and kept trying. And finally, I'm like, you know what? That's it. This is the last one. Make
Yeah,
it
no
or
matter
not.
what, last
We're
one.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's enough for one day.
Yeah.
There were some really good things that came out of that practice, but there were some struggles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If it's always the same skill that's the struggle on, then you got to figure out how do you fix that. You change it, you pull it. It's a little bit late to be pulling stuff out of bar routine, so put in a new skill.
And redoing a whole bar routine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of hard.
Which I have to be honest, we kind of did that yesterday a little bit. Like, let's take out the pack and let's just have a 9.3 start value. And let's try to hit and get an 8.6 or 7 and get to nationals.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that shows that as coaches, you want to be kind of flexible when it comes to this time of the season and stay with your plan, but don't be adding numbers. Be willing to pull things if you need to. Do what's best for your athletes. And if, like Rob just said, if they've been training really hard, you can tell they're really frustrated and things are just too much. Being willing to be that person to be like, hey, we need to stop and let's
Volleyball
start again
time.
tomorrow. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's play some volleyball.
20-minute break.
Yeah.
But I guess overall, I'm thinking that, like Ian said, keep things normal for parents, for coaches. Parents, really be supportive. Try not to evaluate what's going on because that just adds a lot of pressure and stress to your kids. And then keeping that perspective. Remember, it's just another meet. And parents and coaches, if you are really struggling with certain things right now, whether you have specific questions, you have a specific athlete, you're just like, I don't know how to help, reach out to us. We would love to be able to help you. If you have things that you know that really help during this time of the season that you've been doing and it's been showing some really good results, send that our way too. We'd love to share that.
Yeah, parents especially, like we've said all along, don't add stress, just be normal.
All right. Well,
All right,
I think that's a wrap.
Go
So
get
thank
them
you
out
for
there,
joining
everyone.
us.
Let's go postseason.
Woo, we got this. And until next time, stay happy, healthy, and high performing.